everyone, and welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Wahlstrom, and welcome to the Healthcare Executive Webinar course, Healthcare Executive Leadership, Improving Communication and Leadership in High-Stress Environments. We are pleased ActionCoach, business coaching, and Live, Laugh, Love, life coaching experts have collaborated around such an important topic. We'd like to especially thank Sunshine Madsen, Crystal Shanks, and Heather Choye for their continued support with our Healthcare Executive Leadership Division at the Healthcare Executive. After today's webinar, you'll be directed to a short survey, which we will hope you will take the time to fill out. If any IT problems arise, please visit support.anymeeting.com for further assistance. As we begin the presentation, please mute your telephone lines until the question and answer portion of the event. On the left-hand side of the webinar platform screen is a text box to write a question to the presenters. If you have a general question, please insert your question into the text box. If you have a specific question for one of the presenters that you would like to ask, please insert her name next to your question. Just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. We are happy to announce there are a vast amount of attendees who are listening here in the United States and abroad. Like I said, my name is Greg Wahlstrom, and I'll be your guide for today's discussion. Healthcare executives are responsible for communicating and providing leadership across many different spectrums within the healthcare sector. In order to help healthcare professionals manage the impact of high-stress environments he or she are functioning, experts in the program will examine the following: a brief overview on stress, more specifically chronic stress, how stress impacts functioning and illness, research methods on how to reduce stress response and increase well-being, and freeing yourself from taking clients and team members' stress on, as well as ways to buffer your own stress levels. Optimistically, the discussion will provide tools to develop and enhance high-performance teams and managing dynamic healthcare environments. Today we will discuss statistical analysis on stress, and more specifically chronic stress, research findings related to dealing with stress, exploring ways to help healthcare executives learn how not to take things personally, how that will lead to the ability to serve with greater compassion, using curiosity as a tool, how it will be possible to serve clients better, as well as communication, DISC personality assessment, how to communicate so you will get the response you want so you can get ahead towards the common goal. Our moderator today, Greg Wahlstrom, MBA, HCM, President and CEO of the Healthcare Executive. Greg Wahlstrom is a results-oriented senior healthcare executive with more than 17 years of broad background experience in business, healthcare, and human services, and has extensive operational and administrative expertise. He is currently the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Healthcare Executive, leading organizational performance assessment in multiple program areas, followed up with customized C-suite healthcare training that speaks to identified needs. Greg has delivered focused programming around key elements to achieve success based upon best practices and emerging best practices that show promise of improving healthcare organizations nationally and internationally. He has led webinars and face-to-face seminars for thousands of healthcare executives and executives through the American College of Healthcare Executives. Prior to the Healthcare Executive, Greg worked as an assistant administrator, director of social services, and a behavioral health case manager. Greg received a master's degree in business administration and healthcare management and a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Phoenix. He has also completed studies abroad at Shanghai University in Shanghai, China, and he is a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Greg is also the immediate past chairman of the Healthcare Executive Education Committee for the Central Illinois chapter of ACHE. Our next presenter, Crystal Shanks, MSIR, President and CEO, ActionCoach. Crystal Shanks, certified business coach with ActionCoach, has been coaching business owners and their teams to achieve optimum results for 7 years. As a member of ActionCoach, the world's largest business coaching firm, Crystal teaches her clients proven strategies to build thriving businesses. She has worked with hundreds of businesses over the past 6 years to generate substantial revenues and maximize profits. No stranger to the world of business, Crystal Shanks has hands-on experience as a vice president of accounting for a Bay Area firm, which she managed 45 employees and 6 managers in a department that reconciles more than $100 million each month. Prior to moving to San Francisco in 2002, Shanks received a master's degree in industrial relations from the Iowa State University. Crystal attributes her success as a business coach to her professional integrity and commitment to excellence. I am a top performer, so I only work with other top performers, says Shanks, whose clients themselves remark that Crystal is not afraid to call them out. Keeping her coaching clients accountable in a diplomatic and encouraging manner is among the strengths that Crystal Shanks brings to the table as a coach. Like any coach, Crystal Shanks is goal-oriented and focused on pushing her clients to achieve results they've never imagined were possible. She truly understands business and what it takes to make an enterprise profitable. She describes herself as one who is bottom-line driven and analytical with a talent for seeing what others might miss. Her clients describe her as a straight shooter, and they know the feedback that they received from their coach will be honest but constructive. Even more so, Crystal's clients know that she generally cares about them as people, and as one client put it, you'll hire Crystal because she will help you grow your business, and that's great. The added bonus is that you'll also meet a new friend. Our next presenter, Heather Choye, MATP, President and CEO, Live, Laugh, Love Life Coaching. Heather Choye is a transformative life coach, speaker, writer, and mentor. Heather helps people who are on the brink of transition, moving through their fears and limiting beliefs to create the balanced life they desire. She loves learning about what makes people thrive and is interested in all parts of life that make people come alive. Heather helps her clients understand that part of growing into the life they love means letting go the parts they don't. Nothing lights her up like helping people identify what's holding them back and developing a plan to break through the restrictions so they can accomplish their desires and flourish. Heather specializes in assisting major life transitions such as career, relationship, personal identity, development, relocation, and self-care. Heather helps clients learn how to invest their time wisely, and she uses a unique process to transform clients into experts of their own lives through defining values, setting goals, and teaching tested practices to set clients up for lasting success. Clients create their ideal life by using a tested process based on research data to feel less stress and optimize happiness. What makes Heather unique is training and techniques she has gained in her graduate program in transpersonal psychology. Heather acquired knowledge and experience in compassion cultivation training, cognitive emotive behavioral therapy, mindfulness training, creative expression, reflective, somatic sensation practices, visualization exercises, and non-denominational meditation. Her thesis was on increasing well-being through internal and as opposed to external goals, which she pulls on in her practice. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to pass the floor over to our first presenter, Crystal Shanks. Good afternoon, Crystal.
Hi, Gregory. Thanks for having us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm super excited to be here, and I want to thank Heather as well and the great audience. And today is super exciting because we're going to talk about higher-end leadership, specifically related to higher-end communication and what that skill set looks like. So everyone today, after the presentation, can take this information and apply in a real-life situation get the tangible results that they're looking for. So we have lots to cover, so let's just dive right in. So when we're looking at communication, specifically today, the tool that we're going to talk about is the DISC Platinum Rule, which is a behavioral style of communication. It's super interesting, and we'll start with the basics. You know, people and how they communicate. They may communicate verbally, vocally, and visually. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along. Now, this slide that we have here is at the top. You can see there's people who are more guarded in their communication. At the bottom, you know people, maybe you or someone else, that are more open. On the left-hand side, you know, some people communicate indirectly. And on the right-hand side, some people communicate directly. I want the audience just to take a moment right now and pick the two that you feel, the 2 out of the 4 that you feel how you communicate most of the time. So pick the 2 out of 4 that you feel you communicate most of the time. Get that in your head right now, because first we need to know who we are as individuals and our behavioral style, so that we can then learn how our team members, employees, peers, superiors like to communicate, so that we can then adjust our communication styles to theirs, so that we get the response that we're looking for in the results. So you should have picked 2, and then based on the 2 that you picked, you're going to be in that quadrant or that box. So on top left, it's conscientious. Top right, it's dominant. Lower left, it's steadiness. And right or bottom, it's influence. Okay? So everyone's a combination of all four of these quadrants, and I'll tell you what exactly that means as we move along. But usually one or two of the quadrants stand out, and usually that's how you move throughout the world and communicate the majority of the time. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief overview, and then we're going to go into detail in a minute. So the DISC profile was created by a man named William Marston. He was somewhat of a Renaissance man. He was an Iowa dirt farmer for a while. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. Of course, he created the DISC profile, which is highly valid in terms of results and behavioral style. But in my opinion, most interestingly, in the 1960s, he created Wonder Woman, because at that time, he wanted women to have a strong role model. But you guys can research him more on your own. We're going to keep moving forward. All right, so we're going to do a poll. And what you're going to do is, there's 4 questions here. Number 1, A question is, I'm an action-oriented person who is most comfortable when in charge. B, I'm an outgoing person who likes to entertain others and thrives in large groups. C, I am a people person who values friendships in my work relationships and likes to build harmony. D, I like to study lots of information and plan before making decisions. So we're going to do a poll right now. So everyone, you're going to do this exercise with us. I'm going to get the poll up as we speak. And I want you to hit the one that is your gut instinct. I don't want you to think about it. I want you A, B, C, or D, your gut instinct. Go ahead and vote now. Votes are coming in. Super exciting. Okay, a couple more seconds, and I'm going to stop voting because, again, you shouldn't be thinking too much about it. You should just be thinking what you're doing. All right, I'm going to stop the voting, and we'll see what our results are. So the results are just coming up, and this will be exciting. All right, so A was 54%, B was 8%, C was 31%, and D was 8%. So the majority was A, and I want you to take notes right now, because I'm going to give you the DISC quadrant that you hit. So I want you to write it down. So when we talk about it, you know how to use it, okay? So A equals dominance, the dominance quadrant. B equals the influence quadrant, okay? C equals the steadiness quadrant. And if you answer D, is the conscientious quadrant. So make a note of that for yourself, because we're going to learn a little bit about ourselves first, and then how to learn about others. So let's talk about D, since that's the majority of the answers, and I'm not surprised about that because a lot of you are high-end executives. So D stands for dominant. These are your typical leaders. They're very action-oriented. They like to move at a fast pace. They want to get this done so they can do the next task and then do the next task. They tend to talk very quickly because, again, they like to get things done. And they can get knocked down and get right back up. So rejection really doesn't faze them too much. Okay? Now, these tend to be high visionary people, high-level people, and then they like to delegate everything. But they usually don't like to get into the details. Again, the high-end, they lead people, manage people. Now, for example, if you were talking to a high-D personality type, and you said, where did you go? They're going to say, I went to the store. They're not going to tell you what they bought at the store, the neighbor that they saw in the store. Again, they're usually short and concise. Okay? What they do best, they take charge, they're competitive, they love to win, they get things done, they're decisive. They can make decisions very quickly. They're risk takers. They're fearless. No obstacle is too big to overcome for them. And ensuring bottom line results. They're very results oriented. What's hard for them? Challenging. Repetitive tasks, doing the same task over and over. They get bored. They don't like it. They get frustrated. Being diplomatic sometimes because, again, they want to get things done. They're very direct in their communication. So they can come on too strong in conversations. Lots of rules and regulations are hard for them. Again, they feel they know what they need to do, and they just need to be let go and to do it. Opening up. They're not shy, but they're private about personal matters. Okay? So let's look at the high I's of our audience. I standing for influence. High I's tend to be loquacious. They love to talk. They tend to be the entertainers in a sort of group, whether it's, business or personal. The high I's are the ones who are dancing on the tables at the bars, or, they're entertaining, cracking jokes all day long. What high I's thrive on is social environments and people. Okay, so a high I can go to work all day, and then they can go out to a nightclub all night and then repeat that every day. Because that's how they fuel their energy. Okay, when you're talking to a high I, not only are they loquacious, but they tend to get distracted in conversation at times. So they'll be saying something, then they'll say squirrel, shiny object, and then they'll come back to the conversation that you're having with them. Now, if you ask a high I, where did you go? They're going to say, I went to the store. When I was walking out, I saw our neighbor. Our neighbor has a new dog named Puffy. And then I got in my car and this guy cut me off. And they'll relive literally every single experience that they had twice if you let them. Okay? Now, what do they do best? They inspire others to take action. They think fast on their feet. They're super positive, optimistic, intuitive, and creative. A lot of artists are high I personality types. They're full of ideas. They can be impulsive in trying them, promoting ideas, opportunities, or people. A typical high I is your typical salesperson at a lot of times. They're very persuasive. What's hard for them? Restrictions or routines. They don't like that. Formal reports or keeping detailed records. Routine. They get easily bored as well. And doing anything once it's already been done. Okay? So let's look at our high S's, the steadiness. So high S, the most important thing for them overall are relationships. They're the caregivers, the nurturers, the glue of any group or team. They want to make sure everyone feels okay and has everything that they need to do well. Okay? Now, a high S, when they're talking to you or with you, they're going to talk slower. Okay? Because what they're doing when they're actually talking is they're going inside themselves and pulling out the right things to say before talking. Not only do they talk a lot slower, but they will say something, then they will pause. You're going to think that they're done talking, and you're going to start talking. They're not done talking. They're just taking a longer moment, that pause, and really trying to find the right, correct information. Then they'll finish their sentence. So when you're talking with a high S, you have to make sure that when they pause, you count to 5 in your head so that you don't over talk them. Okay? I had, and remember, high Ds like to talk very quickly, so they usually railroad S's. D's and I's railroad S's in conversation. I had one client say, I'm a high D, and I don't know any high S's. And I laughed, and I said, yes, you do. You're just over-talking them. Okay? So what they do best, they bring harmony to group situations. They're friendly and sensitive and great listeners. They build networks of friends to help do work, coordinating, cooperating, with others. They're also super loyal once you get to know them. At first, their motto might be stranger danger because they don't know you. But once they know, like, and trust you, they're loyal for life and will do anything for you. Okay? What's hard for them? Competition. Again, they don't like stirring the boat. Working with, dictator-type people or unfriendly people. They take a lot more time making decisions because they don't like change, and they always question themselves. So you can't push a high S to change. You have to give them all the information. They have to take it away. They have to process their feelings, and then they'll come back when they're ready for the change. Okay? Voicing contrary opinions. Again, they like harmony, so that's hard for them. So C, conscientiousness. A high C, the most important thing for them are facts, figures, information. They're very detailed-oriented. They're super organized. And these are your typical accountants, for example. Everything's in place. Everything adds up. Now, with a high C, what's important for them is control. Not necessarily of other people, but of their own self and their environment. So if a high C was leading a meeting, and of course they have their agenda all ready to go, and someone in that group tried to take them off their agenda, they're going to get super uncomfortable, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get back on that agenda. Okay? Now, what they do best, highly organized, they even plan, they're, being spontaneous. They plan thoroughly before deciding to act. Again, they take a little bit more time to make decisions because they have to plan it. Quick to think, but slow to speak. Okay? Planning to meet specified expectations. What's hard for them? What's challenging? Working with unpredictable people or in disorganized environments. Being outgoing, open is hard for them. They're closed about their personal manners. Working with others or in groups. They prefer generally to work alone. And it's hard for them if someone gives them incomplete, unclear directions. Again, they're the planners. Now, C's are similar to S's in terms of taking more time to make a decision and change. They're not processing feelings. What they need to do is they need to gather the information. They need to go away and process all the information. Okay? So if a high C wanted to buy a pair of eyeglasses, they'll go to every single eyeglass store in the city. They'll try them on. They'll take pictures of each one. They'll create an Excel spreadsheet. It'll look beautiful. Over a month before they'll decide on which pair to buy. But they will buy or change and make that decision. Okay? So let's talk about the DISC Platinum Rule and how to manage relationships. So people connect with people they know, like, and trust. That's how people connect. And so now that you guys know a little bit about yourself, you can start taking this information, and I would recommend that you start trying to identify every person that you come in contact with, their highest one, and start modifying your behavior to how they like to communicate so you can connect with them. So remember, the true definition of communication is the response you receive from the other person. Meaning, if you're communicating with someone, whether it's a team member or superior, and you're not getting the response that you want from that person, then you have to take ownership. You have to take responsibility. Change your behavior style to theirs so that you can communicate on a higher level and get the response that you're looking for. So basically, matching and mirroring their behavior style. So you build rapport, connect, and they can see and hear where you're coming from. Okay? So let's talk about relationships. In relationships with these, support their goals and objectives, keep your relationship business-like and task-oriented, recognize their ideas and accomplishments, be precise, efficient, well-organized, provide alternative actions with brief supporting analysis. Again, the brief is really important. They don't want the details. They want the big vision, and they just want to make sure you can get it done. Okay? I, support their ideas and dreams. Be entertaining and fast-moving. Don't hurry the discussion. With high I's, you have to do a lot more small talk with them. Oh, you're going on vacation. That's great. How are the kids? Yes. Did you have fun last night at happy hour? Try not to argue. You will seldom win. With high I's, when you give them constructive criticism, they don't generally take it very well. And it's not because they're not open, it's because they want to do the best, and they feel like they failed a little bit. So they might get defensive. But they'll go away, and they'll get it done, and they'll get it done right. Okay? Summarize in writing who I's to do what, where, and when. They need a lot of structure. Again, they get distracted. Shiny, squirrel. So they need hard deadlines and accountability. Use testimonials and incentives to positively affect their decisions. S's, the steadiness. Support their feelings by showing personal interest and active listening. Move along in an informal, slow manner. Allow them time to trust you. Again, don't push them. When you disagree, discuss personal feelings. Again, they're all about the feelings. These are our caregivers, our nurturers. Provide guarantees and personal assurances. They're risk adverse. And when you're actively listening to them, remember the rule of thumb, 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. Okay? C, are conscientious people. Support their organized approach. Demonstrate with action, not words. Be systematic, exact, and prepared. List advantages and obvious disadvantages of any plan. Again, they need to process that research. Provide guarantees and proofs that actions can't backfire. Again, C's are risk adverse, just like the S's. Okay? So motivating. How do we motivate these different types of behavioral styles? Great question. Glad that you asked. So motivating D. Lead with the big picture. They don't like the details. They want the big picture. That's what drives them. The vision. What's your vision? What are you guys trying to do? Provides them with options and clearly describe the probabilities of success in achieving goals. Okay? D's, you just have to tell them what to do, exactly how to do it, and the deadline, and you can then be hands off, and they'll just go do it. That's it. That's all they need. Allow them the opportunity to make choices. They do like a couple options. Set boundaries, but let them take charge. Again, give them the task, tell them how to do it when it's due, and they'll go get it done. I's, motivating I's. Provide special incentives to inspire them to go the whole 9 yards. And, that special incentive can just be praise. High I's tend to need a little bit more praise. You're doing a great job. Great work on that. Pat on the back. Show them how they can look good in the eyes of others. How they look in their environment is very important to them, even from the dress, how they comb their hair, how they style their living room, their office. Create short-term content that don't require long-term commitment. Again, they get distracted. So if it's too long, they're going to move on to something else and they're going to forget about it. They're going to get bored. Okay? Reward them in front of others. They love recognition. Okay? Let them speak about their achievements. Again, they like to talk. And it fuels them when they focus on their wins. Okay? Our steadiness group, motivating them. Show how their work benefits others. Again, they're caregivers. They want to help others. Show how the outcome will provide security for their family. Connect their individual work to the benefit of the whole team. Get them to see how their follow-through links to a greater good. Show how it can strengthen their relationship with others. Okay? Motivating C's. Appeal to their need for accuracy and logic. Again, they're super detail-oriented, super organized. Keep your approach clear, clean, and procedural. They love rules. Okay? These people will not break the rules. And if they see other people breaking the rules, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to come to you as a leader to let you know that, because they want everyone to follow the rules. Better yet, provide illustration and documentation. Again, the more information receives, the better. They absorb it. They eat it. Avoid exaggeration and vagueness. Be precise with them. Show them how this is the best available current option. C's love to plan ahead, sometimes to default. Sometimes a C will plan too much before acting and taking action when they should have taken action, the day before. So that's important to know about them. Okay? So we talked a little bit about the history and historical perspective. I'm not going to get too much into this slide. Our great facilitator, Greg, is going to send all these out to you when they're all done and this is recorded. But just focusing on William Marston, who created the disc, the Renaissance man, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Iowa dirt farmer, and most importantly, creator of Wonder Woman. So I'm going to wrap up. Your homework is to, now that you know about yourself, is to every single person that you come in contact with, try to identify their highest one and match and mirror their behavior style to see how greater communication results and tangible results they'll get. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And I'll pass it back to Gregory.
Thanks, Crystal, for sharing the information about the role of the DISC assessment and identifying what personality spectrums a person might fall into. Just a couple quick questions before we pass the floor over to Heather. Could you tell me what is so important about the DISC assessment?
Good question. Why it's important is because each of us prominently moves through the world and communicates with our highest level DISC profile. Sometimes we alienate people who are in the other quadrant without knowing it. We don't know what we don't know, but learning each quadrant and learning each behavior style, then when you communicate with someone, you can take ownership and responsibility and communicate on their DISC behavioral style. So they'll be able to process that information quickly, build relationships, trust you, and so that you can work towards that common goal and get there a lot quicker.
How would you use this information in real life situations?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you for asking that. So that's part of the homework. It's definitely a skill set that most people don't have, but it's a powerful skill set once you have it, because it changes communication on such a high level when you're talking to people, and you'll be able to connect with people and again get that tangible work result that you're looking for. And this isn't only on a professional level. This could be on your personal level too. Maybe you're a high D, but your spouse is a high S, and your spouse keeps telling you, you're not listening to me, you're over speaking me. So then, as a high D, and knowing that your spouse is a high S, you can talk slower, you can be more of an active listener, you can make sure that when they're pausing, they're done talking, and you can make sure that their feelings are okay. And that's just an example. Thank you, Gregory.
Thanks for sharing that information. I really learned a lot from your presentation. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to pass the floor over to our next presenter, Heather Choye. Good afternoon, Heather.
Hello, Gregory. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share all this information I have ready. Okay, so thank you everybody for your time today, and I'm really happy to follow that great presentation by Crystal. Her work is absolutely phenomenal, and I've really learned a lot from her in the past and over this last talk. So hopefully you're all as entertained by her information as I am. And thank you, Gregory, for hosting this event. So I had the opportunity to share this really important information with people so they can actually implement these strategies and start seeing results in their lives and also their business, and how that ripple effect will just make more of an impact than people usually expect. The style in which I will be sharing today is more directed personally, but please keep in mind as you're taking notes, how this works is you can apply it in 3 different ways. So there's going to be personally applying it, and then applying it outside of yourself in your relationship, and then there will also be teaching this and role modeling it with your staff and with others. So as you're taking notes, keep in mind, take notes for yourself, and also take notes in understanding that you're hopefully going to teach this to others. So we'll start from within and we'll work our way up. The first thing that we will do is take a quick poll. If you can please share whatever is currently going on for you as far as do you experience stress on a daily basis? And go ahead and respond to that. You'll have a few minutes and respond yes or no to that one. All right, looks like most people have voted. Wonderful. So it looks like 78% said yes. That's pretty on point as far as the typical statistics go. So typical standard statistics say physical symptoms are typically 77% of people experience those. And that's something under the category of chronic stress, which I'll talk about in one moment. Then 73% of people typically say they have psychological symptoms of stress. And I'll go into the difference on that in just a little bit here, but there's kind of 2 different areas that we're going to focus on, internal and external. And then a lot of people actually state that job pressure is the number 1 cause of stress. So hence why I will be gearing this conversation towards how to handle different stressful things so you can bring that into your work environment. So when it comes to stress, there are 2 different categories, and this is actually my interest mostly in helping people increase well-being has been focused on whether you pay attention to external situations or internal behaviors. And the results by far tend to say you see a much more valuable and long-lasting increase if you focus on internal. Well, guess what? The same thing for stress. So there's 4 different categories of stress. There's behavioral, mental, physical, and emotional. Basically what that means is there's different ways that we experience stress and different stressors that come through different forms. There are different strategies to cope with this that have been defined. So some of them are curiosity, redefining expectations, and reframing. Those are all under the internal category. There's also ways to help your stress and reduce that through external categories, like eliminating caffeine or a diet change, relaxation techniques, sleep, leisure time, and social support. They're all phenomenally important and very interesting, but today we will be focusing on the internal as opposed to the external, because that's where I see the most value for my clients. We also are going to start by talking about something that most people struggle with fairly commonly, which is how to think about things outside of their own perspective. Now, when we have fixed beliefs, when we approach our life or situations with a fixed mindset, not only are we drastically harming our opportunity for growth and expansion because we're not learning new possibilities, but we actually form this kind of rigid pattern, and it keeps us from being flexible and moving with the moment. It keeps us from connecting deeply with others around us, and it makes other people feel less considered, less heard, and less cared for. So basically, the way we can think about this is, how can we be in a situation and be present with the person we're with or with ourselves in a way that doesn't cause stress and anxiety? Typically, the most harmful form of stress, and this may or may not be new information to you, but chronic stress is pretty much the most harmful kind of stress. Most of us have heard some kind of version of how you potentially in early man days, we would be chased by tigers or things of this nature where there would be this huge adrenaline rush. and that all the different chemical reactions that happen inside of our bodies heavily impact that one experience, and then it decreases. Well, chronic stress affects a lot of us at all times, and so it's impacting the endocrine system along with a lot of other aspects of the body. But the really harmful thing is, it is almost as if we are constantly getting chased by that tiger. And if we are constantly experiencing that kind of stress, we are really, really harming ourselves physically and emotionally and our environment. So how we can reduce that is through, at least one of my favorite techniques is curiosity. And so I'm going to ask you to do another poll real quick, if you can. So you're going to go ahead and respond to, in the past, have you felt frustrated by someone misunderstanding you? Go ahead and answer that yes or no. Okay, it looks like our votes are pretty much in. Quick response on those ones. Okay, it looks like 100% of people responded yes. So it sounds like most people are experiencing misunderstandings on a pretty common basis, and that typically causes frustration. So one way that we can help ourselves and others at the same exact time is by using curiosity as a tool. And I'm going to go into a little bit about curiosity, but first I'm going to tell you why it's really important to me and why I make it a focal point of all my work and find it to be the most useful tool out of all. When I did all of my research into well-being, I found this huge correlation between where people were curious and where they were most successful in life. A quick way that you can test this out with yourself, with your employees, or in your personal life is to ask people if they feel like they are curious in the sector of relationship you are in. So if it's in their job place, what you want to do is you want to focus on helping them become more curious. Well, what does curious mean? It's a little bit more complicated than, digging into something a little bit. Curiosity basically comes from an ability to be open-minded. It's an ability to not believe that you have exactly the right answer at all times. That is a really challenging thing sometimes to do because it elicits and it requires vulnerability. It requires us to dig inside and say, okay, I know one possible way that this will work well. Maybe it's worked really well for me in the past. And it's changing your perspective to realize that no matter how many times you've been successful at something, somebody else may actually have a different perspective that would increase the level of success you are currently experiencing by the way you're doing it now. In order to bring that curiosity into your life, you have to be open-minded enough to hear what another person's perspective is. A huge stressor at a workplace environment, one of the main causes of disharmony is when an employee does not feel like their supervisor or manager cares or wants to hear their opinions. The know-it-all mentality is a very hard one and a very harmful one to deal with in a work environment. It's also extremely harmful in a personal environment. In your relationship, if you're not exhibiting curiosity about what's not going right in your personal relationship, it's going to be really hard to have those be high, full-functioning relationships because the other person is not really being heard by you. And you're just working with one brain rather than two different perspectives. Every time you are in a room with another individual, on the phone with another individual, in any kind of communication with another individual, you are able to expand your perception and your range of thought by using that other person's knowledge and brain. If you are not able to extend yourself to hearing their perspective, you are limiting yourself. Yes, you may have more knowledge in a typical situation, but sometimes just having a conversation with somebody may lead to further insight on your part. So you're actually limiting yourself and others by not hearing other perspectives and not increasing a great work environment and atmosphere. So bringing in curiosity, what that really looks like is actually having conversations with employees where you're not checking out, but you're really asking them what's going on for them. That could be on an emotional level or on an intellectual level. but most likely every single one of your employees has something they could contribute to the environment that they're not currently sharing with you. So the key is to find a relationship or a tool where people can actually share what their thoughts are to help the environment and the dynamics get expanded and improved in every way possible. So that's one possible solution for those kind of environments. Another way to tackle this is by redefining expectations. Expectations lead people to think that certain things should happen in a certain way. So we're going back to that fixed mindset. We want to stay as far away from a fixed mindset as possible. Typically tend to approach situations and dynamics and relationships with an expectation and an idea of how things should happen, how things should unfold, what is and is not appropriate. For instance, when we're talking about client care, if you walk into a relationship with a client who either had surgery or is having a medical issue, I assume that most people in the medical field have dealt with some client where they feel, every time you deal with them, it feels like they are really complaining. You might go in every single time and just dread going in there because you're like, oh God, what are they going to complain about now? Well, that belief system is rooted out of an expectation that there is a certain amount of appropriate complaining. And when you really think about it, it's a little bit silly that we feel that way. Not only do we not know what that person's experience is, but who would ever define what an appropriate level of expression would be? So what we're able to do is take our perspective and ask ourselves, why are we thinking that things have to be done in this particular way? Where did I receive this understanding that things should happen a certain way? Once you can take that framework and change it into a different perspective, and that's through using techniques from things like cognitive emotive behavioral therapy techniques. One of my favorite ones is doing things like untwisted thinking, and that's basically where you're going to deal with yourself and others in a way where you're asking why you carry the current belief systems that you are currently carrying. So you can approach that in all different sectors of life, and like I just gave the example with a client, but you can also apply it to many different situations. So I would ask you to think of whatever relationship you are currently feeling the most challenged in. So this could be at home personally or in business. And I want you to think about what that root frustration is coming from. So if you're expecting that person to be home at night when you get home, or if you're expecting that patient to listen to you and treat you as your authority, or if you're expecting your employee to show up at work dressed and ready to go with a positive mindset, and that is your expectation, how did you come across that expectation? Was it something that the society taught you? Is it something that you just always believed? And maybe there's a different way to approach this particular level of frustration. So the first step there would be to become curious. So as soon as you see yourself as triggered, you're going to start having all the physiological stress responses. So you're going to maybe experience an increased heart rate. You're going to start feeling maybe hot. You might feel some kind of anxiety. Many people exhibit a literal physical twitch, twitching of the foot, clicking of a pen. There's many different forms of expressing different onsets of stress. But as soon as you do that, what I would invite you to do is take a moment and actually ask yourself, what is causing me to have this experience? And then ask yourself, why do I believe this, quote unquote, should happen the way I believe it should happen? Many times, just asking that question will take the edge off of things. So if you're able to take yourself down a notch as far as your anxiety goes and say, okay, I can figure this out, I can handle this, and me doing in my own frustration is not going to solve the problem. It's not going to improve it. It's not going to improve a relationship or a dynamic. So, move into curiosity. Once you've asked yourself where you have received that base thought process, then you can move into the next stage, which is actually becoming so two things can happen at that point. At that point, you can either realize that, okay, this is my belief system. I don't want to impose my belief system on somebody else. I realize that this is only formed from my own experiences. So my own experiences in life are 100% different than every single other individual that is living and existing in the universe. Nobody out there has had the same exact experiences as I have, which means they are not experiencing the situation exactly how I am. They're not coming at it from the same perspective, with the same mindset, or with the same belief system. As soon as you can assume that the person is not coming at the situation with negative, malicious intent. So, and I'm not talking here about the people that we feel like are causing problems because they want to cause problems. That's a different thing. What I'm talking about is when people do things that frustrate us, to actually believe that they are not maliciously trying to frustrate us, but that they don't actually know how to do it differently. As a manager, as a partner, as a friend, as a colleague, as an employee, we have an ability to work with others and understand their perspectives and the way that they have come to things, and share what is happening with them and what is happening with us, and create a dynamic between us where they actually can see that we want to understand them, and that we believe that they would do things better if they could, and that we actually would like to help them do things better from a genuine perspective. And by doing that, we will create lasting bonds and relationships with them. So, again, what you want to do is you want to be able to serve your clients better by bringing in these curious mindsets. The root to this, if curiosity is the key to curiosity is compassion. So when we are thinking about how people frustrate us, or different situations that frustrate us, there's a difference between sympathy and compassion. And in the medical field in particular, it's really significant to pull on compassion and not sympathy. Sympathy not only is less effective with clients, they do not feel as heard or as cared about, but it also emotionally drains us. And I know a little bit about this because a lot of my job is about understanding how the client that I am working with is seeing the situation, and typically they're in a fair amount of discomfort. If I have sympathy for them, I'm blocking my ability to meet them where they are and help them through the situation. That is where compassion comes in. So the difference is, sympathy is feeling bad for somebody's situation. So let's say you have a client that's in a lot of pain. You approach the situation with sympathy. Oh, I'm so sorry that you're in pain right now. It doesn't actually help that client. If you can come to them with compassion, which sounds much more like, wow, I can see you're in a lot of pain right now. That really looks like an uncomfortable situation for you to be in. I have really been there before. How can I help you with that? What can I do to relieve whatever is causing you anxiety? Can I give you more information? Are you in physical distress? Can I get somebody to help you with this situation? And sometimes all they need is somebody that's there, and they actually feel like is listening and caring for them. And that alone will actually resolve a lot of their distress just by having me there. A lot of times we discredit how important and how significant our presence truly is. In all of life, again, in personal relationships and business relationships, the number one thing you can do to help your clients is to be present with them. In order to be present with them, it requires a fair amount of compassion and vulnerability. If we're not able to bring vulnerability and compassion to the table in those moments, they're not going to feel like it's genuine. It's always much better to bring in humor and honesty than it is to check out and not be with your client. So if you're having a hard time that day, it's okay actually to share that with your client. Of course, you don't want to give them the impression that you're not able to be there for them, but it's good to relate to our clients. It makes us human. It makes their experience feel more relatable and normalized. So that's a few ways to bring compassion and curiosity to the table in the different relationships that you have, specifically in client care. And I hope that some of that has been helpful to you, and I'm really excited to help as many people as possible increase their workplace environment and their home life so they can serve with their highest self and bring that to the table. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Heather, for sharing that information. Just a couple quick questions before we open up the questions and answers from the attendees. Leading a healthcare organization comes with many responsibilities, and often coupled with stress and becoming burnout, which will impact the individual and the organization. Having worked in the healthcare sector for many years, I've seen a higher than normal rate of absenteeism and turnover rate, which would detract from the quality of care that we provide for our patients. What strategies would you recommend senior leadership to implement with employees to help minimize or alleviate some of these symptoms?
Right. So not to beat a dead horse here, but curiosity is going to be a really easy approach to instantly transforming a workplace environment. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can implement different programs. You can start creating either shorter meetings once a week or a little bit longer meetings once a month. But the real goal is to approach it with genuine compassion and curiosity. As soon as your team feels that, it's going to be a way to reduce the stress in the environment by causing tons and tons of support. There's all different kinds of external, as we discussed at the beginning, ways of helping reduce stress. The easiest one, though, a lot of people are implementing right now is mindfulness. Mindfulness techniques in general are great. A quick one that I can help immediately with is if you teach your staff and you yourself practice breathing into the belly. So you take a time out before a stressful event or at the beginning of a meeting or after a long week, or just as a reminder, sticky note on desk or something of that nature, to sit in a chair, ground yourself, feel the literal floor underneath you, kind of feel into your physical body a little bit, and then take some deep breaths into your stomach, focusing on not pushing up the shoulders or expanding the chest. This sends neurological signals to your brain that you have become in a safe environment, and it will instantly decrease your stress levels. So implementing a practice like that into your overall approach and individually will really help reduce stress very quickly if you want to do the more physical, external approach as well as the curiosity.
Thanks for sharing that. You did a wonderful job of explaining using curiosity as a tool around practicing and exhibiting curiosity. What would you suggest for healthcare leaders to do to encourage these practices on a frequent basis at the organizational level?
I would say leading by example is going to be the number one way of doing that. It's obviously the hardest way. It's not something that we can check a box off on something, but it really is all about doing the internal work ourselves so we can show up with the level of compassion, vulnerability, and curiosity required to start leading by example. When you're in a position of power and leadership, there's really no better thing than to really do it yourself first. It will, if nothing else, it will change the energetic frequency in the area for the other people to feel much safer in the environment to share their version of curiosity. So showing up every day, genuinely looking at your employees' eyes and connecting with them, making sure to pull them aside when you have a minute and you have a little bit of energy, and looking at them and saying, hey, I was really wondering how you're doing. I've been noticing this. Or is there anything that you would be willing to share with me that you have in mind that could help our environment? Or how can I support you doing your job more efficiently? You're doing such an excellent job that I believe and I trust that you have so much more to offer us, and I'd love to hear what that is. You'll see a 100% turnaround from even the most difficult employees if you can open yourself up to that conversation.
Thanks for sharing some of those strategies with us. I would like to take the opportunity just to interject a couple quick questions to the entire panel, so feel free to chime in on any of these questions, Crystal or Heather. The first question is, oftentimes we look at a particular situation through our lens from the experiences that we've had in our lifetime. And the same person can look at the same situation but see something different in the situation. Not saying that one person is right or not saying that the other person is wrong, but through our experiences in life, we have a hard time understanding the other person's perception, which can lead to stress from one another. Do you think organizations should have a regular in-service or staff meeting to talk about this?
So I'll chime in, and I think Heather will have some as well. Yes. So communication is key. And it's everything. Without communication, everything breaks down. So I tell all my clients they should be having a weekly staff meeting and have that agenda. Talk about, the wins, the successes of the last week. Talk about the challenges. Talk about the bigger vision goals and how each individual are going to contribute to that goal that week. Have that be a little bit of a space for an open forum to talk about any breakdowns in communication. But that's my advice.
Yes, I would second all of that. I think that it's extremely valuable for a group to do anything that's going to allow for more fluidity in communication. A lot of times we feel like we're just barely keeping our head above water, and so we eliminate things like team meetings. Sometimes that's because the team meetings aren't being run quite effectively, and so people kind of show up to them expecting not to receive much out of them. So it's not just the actual check mark of the meeting happening, but it's actually running a meeting in a way where you're effectively helping all the people in the organization communicate clearly and effectively with each other with an open perspective and open mindset. And I think that that's key above just how often it's happening or how long or any of those, but how the meeting is actually being run and not being afraid to say, hey, the way we are structuring this meeting could be improved. I'd also love input from everybody on how to improve our team meeting. So I think that would be valuable.
Thank you, Heather. We all know that the healthcare landscape is frequently changing, especially as the Affordable Care Act starts to achieve the triple aim. When we look at organizations who implement in their hiring process the personality assessment evaluations, do you think these assessments truly filter out employees who are consistent with the mission, vision, goals, and values of the organization?
I'll chime in first, if that's okay, Heather. So the answer is yes. One thing to keep in mind is, our systems and hiring systems that are very, very effective, but we're, dealing with people. So there is no perfect hiring system. But there are some great hiring systems out there, such as the personality profile. So, for example, that helps you put the people in the right positions, so you have the right players on the bus to be able to complete the task and get the result you're looking for. There's a saying about hiring: hire slow, fire fast. And when you're looking for people with certain, whether it's their behavioral style, because that affects, what types of work that they like, and, if they're going to be happy, and retention, and all that affects the bottom line. So there's a saying: you can teach a chicken how to climb a tree, but it's easier to hire a squirrel.
The way I could answer that is through kind of a backwards approach, because I do career coaching, which is basically helping people find the right job for them or career path. And in that work that I do, I work a lot with values, and we do value exploration as the main tool to find what the proper career path and fit at the workplace environment will be. So I definitely think that, implementing those tests sounds like a great idea, but in the end, one thing that's going to be really valuable is to have a sit-down conversation where you familiarize yourself enough with how to explore someone's values, enough to see if their values are a good fit for your company and for the position that they would be hired into. If they are a really family-oriented person and that's the top of their values, and you're expecting them to work night shifts and work, 60 to 70 hours a week because of the position, they're going to be miserable. They're not going to be meeting their values. So on the other hand, if you're interviewing somebody and their highest value is, work ethic and contributing to the world, that same person would be, or that different person would be a great fit for that same position, because their values are going to be very highly met in that position. So that would be the other part that I would suggest to fill in addition to any kind of testing.
Thank you, Heather. I know that we talked, a good portion of today's presentation about stress. One question that we have is, I've heard stress can be both good and bad. Could you expand on whether or not this is true?
Stress can be a healthy motivator when it is not chronic stress. And that's what I was talking about earlier with that kind of constant, it really is harmful to the body, specifically the endocrine system, when we're releasing those really high-level hormones constantly. But to have a little bit of an adrenaline boost right before we're going to go into an event isn't necessarily harmful, and it can, when it is doing what it was intended to do, which is kind of readying you for action, then it's good. When it's not readying you for action, but your body is constantly in a state of overwhelm, then it's bad. So basically what that means is if you're experiencing kind of constant agitation, that is not good stress. If you're experiencing that kind of adrenaline rush right before you're going to go into a surgery or a conversation with somebody or a meeting, those can be good. They just kind of heighten our senses. They increase blood flow. They do a lot of kind of effective things to make us really alert and prepared.
Okay. And then I would like to ask one final question. When taking the DISC assessment, a couple times you seem to reveal different results each time you take the assessment. What does that mean?
I'll lead on this one. What that means is certain parts of your time, maybe you have a task that you normally wouldn't like to do, but you have to do it. So let's say you're a high D, so you're dominant and you're driven, and you don't like details. You like to delegate that out. You like big vision. You love to win. But your superior tells you, I need this very specific spreadsheet, and it has to be very precise, and it's going to be about 20 pages long. So you know you have to do that task because your superior told you. So you can literally shift over to your high C focus, and get that task done. Now, if you stay out of your number one quadrant or highest profile for too long, you're going to get mentally and physically uncomfortable and upset, and you're not going to like it, and you're going to go back to your number one highest profile as soon as you can. So you can shift through them, and you're a combination of all four. It's just that your number one is primarily how you communicate and walk through the world.
Thank you, Crystal. Now we'd like to take the opportunity to open up the questions and answers from the attendees. On the left-hand side of the webinar platform is a text box to write a question to the presenters. If you have a specific or a general question for the presenters, please insert your question into the text box. If you have a specific question for one of the presenters that you would like to ask, please insert her name next to your question. At the end of today's webinar, you'll be directed to our short survey, which the healthcare executive hopes you will take the time to fill out and planning for a future event. So the first question is, what if you found yourself fitting into parts of all four categories, but not dominant in any single quadrant related to the DISC assessment?
Good question. That means you're very well balanced. So you can move through each of those behavioral styles a lot easier and change your behavior style a lot easier than the majority of most people, AKA you're a unicorn.
And then the next question is, how do I know if someone is or if I am having trouble coping with stress?
The easiest answer for that is where your mind rests. Harder to diagnose somebody else if they're experiencing stress without just asking them simply if they feel stressed out. But if you're trying to figure out if you're stressed, many signs would be just kind of common ones. So how are you sleeping at night? If you are left by yourself, where did your mind wander to? Is it repetitive thoughts? Are you beating yourself up? Are you feeling down? Are you constantly trying to distract yourself? If you do have downtime, what activities are you inclined to do? So those are kind of ways to explore and see when we're not preoccupied with something where our mind goes.
Thank you, Heather. One other question is this was geared towards Crystal. Could you tell us, when you're looking at the DISC assessment, is it important to take the DISC assessment multiple times? And if so, could you tell us what that means when you're getting different results every time you're taking the assessment?
Good question. The answer to that is generally you have your natural adaptive behavioral style. But again, in certain situations, you may have to shift. So I'll give you an example. I have a client who is a high S. Okay? Caregiver, nurturers like to move slower. And she was a sole prop for a while, and then we just expanded her team, got a commercial space. And so when she took it again during that time where she had to build up the business very quickly, her results showed her as a high D. Dominant, very action-oriented, and very results-oriented, because she had to shift back. She had to shift into the D in order to get the results that she needed done quickly in order to be successful. Now, when all the systems are complete, she'll naturally shift back to her S, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Crystal. I don't see any more questions coming in the text box. If you do have a general question, please insert your question into the text box. And if you have a specific question for one of the presenters that you'd like to ask, please insert her name next to your question. So it looks like I don't see any other questions coming in at this time. I would like to give Crystal the opportunity to leave us with some closing remarks.
Sure. Thank you, Gregory. Well, I just want to thank Gregory, our awesome facilitator, for being able to do this forum today to give value to the audience, and thank Heather for being my partner today and being able to do that on a higher level. Also, wanted to extend an offer that is exclusive to this group. We're offering this group a 60-minute complimentary executive coaching session. We talked about generalities today, but this session would allow you to dig deeper into, what your challenges are, goals are, etc. Now, just so you know, these type of sessions are usually booked out a week to 2 weeks in advance. So if it does make sense on both ends to have this casual chat to get to know each other better and produce more value, you can email me at crystalshanks@actioncoach.com. And my calendar, as I'm sure is yours, fills very quickly. So it's first come, first served basis. And I enjoyed my time together with you guys today. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Crystal. I also would like to take the opportunity to give Heather the opportunity to leave us with some closing remarks.
Yeah, it was lovely being here. Thank you for having me, Gregory, and always a pleasure, Crystal, to work with you. And I admire your work. I'd suggest anybody to take her up on that offer. And I would love to help anybody that would need or desire to have a more cohesive work environment and feels like they could use a little bit more guidance. Please feel free to contact me at heather@livelaughlovelifecoaching.com, and I would be happy to have a conversation with you about working a little bit more on how to effectively implement these things into your workplace environment and handle workplace or personal stress. And if you have any personal questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I would be happy to answer those as well. So thank you for taking your time today to learn this, and I really hope that you're able to take it back and implement it and see great, fantastic, lasting results.
And thank you, Crystal and Heather, for sharing a wealth of information with us this afternoon. We truly appreciate that. We'd like to especially thank today's moderator, Greg Wahlstrom, Crystal Shanks, Heather Choye, and Sanjay Madsen for taking the time to share pertinent information about healthcare executive leadership with a focus on improving stress and communication and the impact it has on each of our healthcare organizations. We'll be sending all the attendees instructions on how to self-report your 1.5 hours of qualified education credit through the American College of Healthcare Executives, and also a link to the webinar recording a week from today. Feel free to connect with us across these social media platforms. If you have any questions in the interim, please do not hesitate to contact us at the information below. And we would also like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy day to attend today's webinar. Make sure that you log into your ACHE account to record your 1.5 hours of qualified education credit for today's webinar. And this will conclude today's webinar.